I call to order the October 28, 2020 business meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone, and ask everyone in the audience, please silence cell phones and your devices. Treasurer Wagner, please lead us in pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Wagner, please call the roll. Mrs. Page? Present. Ms. Bolton? Present. Mrs. Bowers? Present. Lindy? Here. Mr. Messer? Present. Mr. Morosky? Here. President Emerson? Here. Thank you. Okay, please, we ask the audience, we appreciate your patience. We were having a little bit of technical time. So I'm going to start by giving some initial instructions on hearing the public. Please, we ask that you pay close attention to these instructions. Members of the public who wish to speak during hearing the public must request to do so during the first 10 minutes after the start of the meeting. To speak, you will need to send a request by clicking the chat button, submit your name, your affiliation to the district, your school community, and your contact information if you want a direct response to any questions you might have. In keeping with the board's standard practice for hearing the public, you must click the visibility icon when you are recognized to speak. Individuals who request to be heard after the first 10 minutes of the meeting will not be recognized to speak during this meeting. Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting October 19, 2020, and the business meeting October 19, 2020. Okay. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved as presented. Okay, Mr. Lindy, please present the audit committee meeting report from October 21st.
We had a wonderful meeting of the I'm going to briefly share some of the topics and then mention that the full minutes are available online. It will be soon for anyone. We looked at the way we are counting attendance during distance and blended learning. Very important topic these days. We had an update on the status of benefits audit recommendations from the HR team, which was quite comprehensive and quite well done. We also had an update from our treasurer on the very complicated and very financial planning process for this year. So it was a great meeting. If you'd like to read more, they will be posted very soon. Board members have questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy. Okay. Do board members have any questions about Mr. Lindy's report? Yes, Mr. Morosky.
Mr. Lindy, do we have a side-by-side comparison, and if not, that's fine, but could we get one of attendance during full remote virtual versus attendance, like actual numbers? So what I'm kind of getting at, I guess, is for the few hundred students that we weren't that we were hoping we would reach, but I hope we did, with bringing kids back on a limited basis, have we reached them, or are we at the same place?
So this did come up, and I will share the number that last week, which was more than 500 kids were coming during blended, who were not coming together. And the administration may have more updates, but that was a topic. And I thought that was great news.
Right, that was good news. I think it would be instructive to have those apps, like a sort of a 2-week average. What does attendance look like overall from 100% virtual versus blended? If we could get that, so I can make that comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lindy. Ms. Bates, please present the October 22nd Open Safety Committee meeting report.
Yes, the topics discussed was an overview of sexual education as provided by the district curriculum department. This is a yearly update that we receive. We also reviewed the draft of the anti-racism policy. And so we will continue to work on that as individuals and have the then review policy because we believe that should be handled gravely. Then we have great presentation for the new Mask On For Me campaign by Kristen Blair, and COVID-19 measures safety update to date by Sarah Trumbull Oliver, which we receive monthly. Are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer them. The full text of the minutes are available to board members and will be available to the public.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bates. Do board members have any questions or comments about the report?
Yeah, that's fine.
Ms. Bowers?
That's fine.
Thank you. That's one question. On the first page, the final law regarding education, with the CPS has created specific entry procedures, and it's going to be have a hearing committee. Is that the ideal choice to roll into the curriculum at some point? The STD prevention. I know I can just prevention the students, especially in the curriculum, but the prevention part of that, the expectation. Look at that policy.
For speaking of public.
Yeah, we have, it is a policy that we take instruction in disease education. Perhaps, maybe staff members can address that more particularly.
This all we
Yes, I believe that we were reassured that part of the 2 years and that those issues were covered. I believe that Campbell couldn't be there, but I think Chris was standing in, so was reassuring us.
That's prevention will be added as part of the curriculum awareness.
Whenever it's not in there already, to a certain extent.
Okay. And then the second question, I just want to commend that this group on the extension one to set beyond racism policy. Policy that you want to share. Other policy, I want to create something further be something. The recommendation, I think, is that the board of education to offer training to state board members to identify their own implicit bias. So I think that that's great that you would set forward with that one.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Roski.
Thank you, President Jones, and thank you, Board Member Bates. Just a comment and a question. The comment is in the midst of the anti-racism policy. I appreciate the feedback on this bill policy because the current institute is fantastic. As somebody who co-leads this work in my daily life for the past couple of years, there are a number of black that we sort to that I think could do an audit of the district, help us, and also be maybe even lead this training, but that would be a whole could have to be competitive sort of thing. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the shout out to Kerwin. And also, again, since we haven't been able to talk about this as a full board here because of all the other matters going on, I appreciate that it was discussed in health and wellness. That being said, I would like to get the recommendation back into policy so that we can direct the administration and keep it all in like a place. And so we have a meeting next Friday, and if it's okay, I think this is a sound action item. Let me be super clear about that at the administration. Go through and kind of versus what is policy. And so if we could, and I know Mr. Hoying is here and listening, so if we could maybe even get an update on that by next Friday, I think that would be good. And again, I appreciate it was in health and wellness, but just so we can keep our eyes on it. I also appreciate it. I would like to point out the NAACP as far as group input, because we have a number of groups that are represented. I don't believe the NAACP is one of them. So I wanted to call that out as well. So just to kind of wrap up, that audit, for lack of a better term, of what is procedure versus policy should probably happen. If we could get an update on Friday, next Friday would be great.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Any other questions? I just wanted to make a brief, I need a clarification. The sentence under, on page 4, under the COVID measure safety update, I believe that with the safety measures conversation, that paragraph at the end of that page. So I believe that was written to make sure that there was some accountability built into these reports. I'm pretty unclear about that first sentence. What does that mean?
Which, can you read it?
It says, committee member Bolton expressed concern about staff reporting concerns to the principals in order to get them cleared up before contacting the administration. Are you talking about safety issues in the building that get, okay, and you're encouraging people, is that what it is? You're encouraging that it go through building leadership before it comes to administration?
That, and also that district is aware of those sorts of things that have been reported to the principals. So was there, some sort of document that was following that at either level, just so we keep that all in mind. So
Okay.
yes, both encouraging and also making sure that some at the district level was aware of those sorts of things that were being corrected at the site level.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That helps. And then finally, I was pleased and very much okay with that, with the discussion. I think it's appropriate that the Health and Safety Committee address the update, and certainly was happy that there weren't any recommendations that came out of this discussion. It looked like a discussion to really address kind of where things were right now and any ideas that might come up. So I appreciated that. And I say that only because most of our discussion around the safety update has happened in full board. And I do realize that our committees are going to be taking on more of the action-oriented work in the committees. And so I was glad that there wasn't sort of a blanket action item or recommendation, but that it was more of an early discussion for board members to look at, to make sure that health and safety was in fact addressing this on an ongoing basis. So thank you for that. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I need a motion to accept minutes as written.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Superintendent Mitchell, please introduce this evening's presentation.
Thank you. So tonight, the administration will provide an update as it relates to COVID-19 safety, and they're pulling up the presentation slides in just a moment. This evening, what we're going to cover are...
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
What
I was saying is...
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was saying that the administration tonight is going to provide an update as it relates to COVID-19 safety for the district, for the community, and for the city. And so if you'll go to the third slide, please. So tonight we're going to cover the health data as it relates to the city and to the county. We'll also cover student attendance as well as, and we're going to start off with distance learning update. All right, so we'll start off with the distance learning update provided by Jeremy Gallahue. Thank you.
So to start our updates tonight, we wanted to look at an update on the distance learning model that we've discussed. So we'll take a look back to the infamous bridge now. And if you recall, what we talked about was to be able to offer this option as a district-wide possibility, we needed at least 25% of our students to opt in for this offer if it were to be available. That represented around 8,750 students. What the actual numbers are, based on both our survey as well as a lot of follow-up efforts, including school-based and school social workers calling families and trying to get as much information and responses as possible, you can see as we had around 3,300, which represents just shy of 10% response rate. You can see on the chart on the right, I know it's a little small, but the important part.
Can you please, wait, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just got notified that members of the audience are having a difficult time hearing us speak. So we're going to ask people to speak directly into the mic.
Okay.
That's board members as well.
Absolutely. So the chart on the right, I know it's a little small, but the important part there is the first red line represents that 25%. The blue bars are the breakdown of respondents by school. What we really needed to see was each of those blue bars be very close to that first 25% marker. As you can see, there was only one school that actually hit that mark. The rest are significantly below. So this creates a real challenge for the technology platform based on our bridge discussion, if you recall.
Can you speak into your mic, please?
I wanted to know which school hit the 25%.
Hayes Porter. Thank you. So based on this information, as well as some of the context that you'll see in the following bits of information, it's unfortunately that the current data would state that it would not be possible to offer a sustained school-based distance learning model, and we would recommend that families looking for a full-time remote option going forward should continue to choose the Cincinnati Digital Academy.
Okay, can we, I believe there's sort of an immediate question, Jeremy. Actually, we were going to hold on to the questions, but I think this is sort of a different moment in time. So go ahead, Ms. Bolton, quickly.
Yes, thank you for that report, and I'll be anxious to kind of have a closer look at it.
Sure.
I think the last time we were here, and there was a great deal of community concern about the nature of the survey. And I thought we were going to be looking a little bit more into that survey, that the resistance might have been the nature of the survey, because at least, and this is just anecdotally on the bridge, out in the community, so to speak, but given the opportunity for a school site distance learning opportunity, at least anecdotally, I hear that all the time, rather than CDA. So I know we're getting ready to make some decisions, or we've been working on this. I just am a little concerned to put too much faith in that survey. And under current circumstances too, is this looks like it might be a prolonged period of bad community spread. I hope I understand not recommending it now, but I would like to keep it perhaps on the table just because of that survey concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on with the
President
presentation.
Jones,
Yes, go ahead, Superintendent.
if I could address that issue, we did look into that very carefully. As a matter of fact, and Susan Bunty will speak to this, What was asked to be done was to call every single family, A group and B group, who did not report to in-person learning and find out why they were not coming into our in-person learning option, to identify if distance learning at their home school was a reason that they were not coming to school. That's what they wanted. A little bit later on in the presentation, Susan Bunty will provide the responses from our parents, as our school social workers called them. So you're correct, Board Member Bolton. There were issues as reported by parents, and so we did another follow-up for every family who did not return to in-person learning. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. Superintendent, you can go ahead.
Is going to talk about the community health data.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. So we can go to the next slide. We do have an update on the community health measures for tonight. The city of Cincinnati daily new cases, our 7-day average continues to increase. You can see on this chart that we have not quite reached the peak that we saw in July. However, the trend for the past 3 weeks now has been heading in the wrong direction for the city new cases. Next slide. If we drill into the past 14 days of the city's daily new cases, we only have 3 days that are decreasing in the 7-day average from the day prior. And if you look at that last red dot there, our most recent 7-day average for the city is 64 new cases. And go to the next slide, please. According to our health professionals in our region, their suggested threshold to recommend distance learning is at 25 new cases per 100,000 residents. So if we take that 64 from the prior slide and divide the number of residents in the city, in the city of Cincinnati, we're at 21 new cases per 100,000. And in Hamilton County, actually, as of this morning when the slide was created, Hamilton County was at 24 new cases per 100,000. We did just get an update about 2 hours ago from the health professionals, and that number is up to 27 now. So higher than the suggested threshold for distance learning. Next slide, please. The positivity rate has gone up to the city of Cincinnati 2.7% and Hamilton County outside of Cincinnati 5.7%. Again, those were as of when we ran these reports this morning, and those have increased since we have received a new report to 3.9 for the city and 5.9 for Hamilton County outside of the city, which is higher than the recommended threshold of 5%. On the next slide, we will show that the average length to get test results does remain unchanged. And on to the next slide, the rating for Hamilton County on the Ohio Public Health Advisory System is level 3 red with a special designation of approaching level 4 purple. And if our county is still meeting 6 out of these 7 indicators that are part of this system, we will be moved into the level 4 purple when the update is released tomorrow afternoon. This measure is one of the 4 measures we've been monitoring and discussing with our health advisory group, but this is the most visible indicator due to the media coverage, the governor's press conferences, and what our families and staff are most familiar with. After 3 weeks of increasing cases, and at this level of community spread, the community rates are impacting our ability to keep our schools open in person safely, as you will see in a moment with our staff absence data. Next slide. So in addition to our community health measures, our health professionals recommend that we look at the effectiveness of our safety protocols in the schools. And so this is data that we have not had before, and we would be remiss to ignore it now that we do have it. So this data you're seeing is from the Ohio Department of Health COVID school dashboard. And so looking at just Hamilton County public schools, there were 24 new student cases and 25 new staff cases that were reported in the prior week out of 114,000 public school students. Now, it's important to remember that these numbers represent positive cases, not quarantine cases. Sometimes those numbers get confused, and usually the number in quarantine is much higher than the number that are positive cases. Also, this data was 2 weeks ago. Due to the frequency of this report, it gets put out every Thursday for the prior week. Next slide, please. So far, the early evidence is that there is little to no spread of COVID within the schools, but this data is still being collected and analyzed. For example, CPS has enrolled in a new national database created by an individual from Brown University and sponsored by the School Superintendents Association, and we'll be submitting our baseline report within the next few days. It's all aggregate data, so no personally identifiable information is shared. We're hopeful that more districts around the country will also join this database to provide additional data to help inform our decisions and inform our safety measures. We're also part of a consortium that is facilitated by Children's Hospital of regional districts to share data and learn from each other about confirmed cases, quarantine cases, and effectiveness of our safety protocols, even when the community spread is high. So we look forward to continuing to share our learnings from these new data sources. And next up will be Ms. Susan Bunty.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So if we go to the next slide, let's take a look at our current student COVID data as of 7:30 a.m. this morning. Please note that we are incredibly thankful for our ongoing partnership with the Cincinnati Health Department and with Children's Hospital. Something to note is that not every student who goes to the isolation room is tested. That is a medical decision by our nurse test dependent upon the symptoms that the child is presenting. And in addition, some children prefer to see their primary caregiver. And so in that case, they are sent with a referral from the nurse, and then Cincinnati Health Department follows up. If you look at the next slide, please, let's talk a little bit about our attendance. So on the left-hand side of the chart, you can see on the first line what our attendance rate was during distance learning. And the line below that is indicative of our attendance rate for both synchronous and asynchronous attendance during blended learning. On the right-hand side, you can see the attendance percentages based on physical presence of students in our buildings for both our A cohort and our B cohort from last week. So on the next slide, we dug a little deeper, and as our superintendent mentioned, we contacted families whose children were not present last week. And as Superintendent Mitchell noted, one of those reasons was distance learning. They were waiting for more information about the Bridge to the Bridge program. That was 97 students. Other reasons that families indicated, and this is not the exhaustive list, but you can see some of the higher reasons indicated for this chart for their children's absence. Now, Mr. McDowell is going to share with us some information on staff attendance.
Good evening, board members, and good evening to our audience. I wanted to share with you some information related to our staffing data. And what we have here on the slide just represents some real lifetime data that was collected today. Superintendent Mitchell and Sarah Trimble Oliver, our Chief Strategy Officer, they have weekly huddle calls, safety calls with our principals. And what we're sharing with you right here reflects a true reflection of some of our schools that reported out today on the number of staff that were not present, that they were left unfilled today. So what do our schools do? In times like this, they do their best, they scramble, They find people that can fill in the classrooms and make sure that the education process continues to flow for our students. Last week, we monitor attendance on a daily basis of our staff reported in from our schools. And we're starting to see a trend where we're starting to see more employee absences, meaning that the number of absences are increasing amongst the entire district in our school fields. Last week, on a particular day, we had over 500 staff members district-wide in all of our schools that were out last Thursday. If you think about percentages, if I say that 8% of our teaching staff is out, that's over 240 positions district-wide that we then are trying to fill. If I would say that we had 12% of our civil staff not report, that's over 340 positions that will be left unfilled. And with those positions, we don't have opportunity for substitutes. Next slide, please. We've shared with the board and the public on a couple different occasions that we had the opportunity when we were planning this summer to bring in positions that we call super subs. We did that for a number of reasons. One, we knew that we were going to need coverage in our classrooms. Two, we wanted to be able to dedicate these individuals to particular buildings so they weren't traveling so we could prevent the spread. But as you can see, which kind of reflects in the last slide, these are positions that are remaining unfilled. And these are where our schools jump in and do the best they can. Repeated on the call, and I'm repeating what Superintendent Mitchell stated to us today, everyone in our schools are wanting to do the best they can to keep educating our students, but they're getting nervous. And they're trying their best to keep their staff calm and in the educational mind frame. And I can't tell you how much we do appreciate that. Next slide, please. Wanted just to share as well that as far as the testing opportunities that we have been tracking, just the number of our employees that have tested positive. This data goes back to May. And then you can see that also 6 of those individuals were contractors. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it back over to Superintendent Lauren Mitchell to finish our presentation.
Thank you, Paul. Next slide, please. So in summary, we were able to see the 14-day average, and we have 3 data points in which the positivity rate was actually, we have our positivity rate, which is increasing not only for the city, but also for the county. And we have our Ohio Public Health Advisory System, and we have the red designation with the asterisk that we are approaching level 4. In addition, our student in-person attendance has actually been going down. If you look back on the chart that Susan Bunty provided, we're down in the 70% in terms of student attendance. And then we are seeing, as Mr. McDowell indicated, decreases of our attendance as it relates to our staff. And we're have had some days in which filling the teacher vacancies due to illness as well as due to quarantine, hard to fill those positions. So this is a summary of the data for the county, for the city, and also for CPS. Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent, does that conclude your report, your update?
That concludes the update, yes.
Okay. So before we open up for board questions, comments, and discussion, we shifted a little bit to invite the public to speak directly behind the superintendent's report, so that the board members can also hear the comments of our public. So we are going to start. We're going to open up our hearing of the public segment, and after that, we will open up our board discussions. Okay. So we are now at the item on our agenda for hearing the public. The board prides itself on being as transparent and open as possible. Consistent with the state's direction to minimize public gatherings, we are convening this video conference call to include opportunity for public comment. Here again are the specific instructions for participation and hearing of the public. Members of the public who wish to speak during the board meeting must have already made their request through the chat feature within the first 10 minutes of the meeting. Your information in chat should include your full name, affiliation to the district, school community, and contact information for response to any specific questions. This request models the standard of practice that we have as a board when we are meeting in person in the Ed Center. Treasurer Wagner and Daniel Hoying will be our timekeepers. Once the request has been granted, you will be invited to enter. Please click on the visibility icon to go interactive. After speaking, you will see briefly, you will see the welcome screen again as you transition back to the live stream meeting. And I believe there is a signal. Is it a red light? No, but that they will be, okay, you will be told when your 2 minutes are up. So each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, and each speaker may only speak once. When the timer goes off, your 2 minutes are up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel items. We ask that your public commentary be respectful of all those listening in. Okay, we ready?
Ms. Shannon Burwinkle. Go ahead, Ms. Burwinkle.
Can you hear me okay?
We can't see you though. Click visibility. There you go. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, hello. My name is Shannon Burwinkle, and I am a student teacher assigned at Dater High School. I would first like to thank Cincinnati Public Schools for accepting me as a teacher candidate and allowing me to teach remotely. Today, I am asking if you would consider allowing teacher candidates back in Cincinnati Public School buildings. As a student teacher, I am currently not allowed in any CPS building. Instead, during my assigned bells, I am projected in front of students on a whiteboard in a Google Meet. I cannot hear or see any of the students, even when my camera is faced towards them. If I were able to teach in person, I would work with my mentor teacher so that we can make sure that both the students in blended learning environment and in the virtual learning environment can have access to as much help as they can get. With our current circumstances, students need a copious amount of support, and I am willing to take extra precautions so that I can teach in person and give the most personalized education I can personally offer. I am social distancing, I am wearing masks in public, and I even quit my food service job so that I can remain healthy and focused enough to continue learning at my placement school. The CDC writes that young adults make up 20% of confirmed cases. I understand the concerns associated with letting teacher candidates into buildings. With that said, I do not want to be grouped into the same category as the college students who are attending parties or mass gatherings that do not allow for social distancing. Myself and my fellow classmates are in our last year of college. We are taking this profession and the spread of COVID-19 as seriously as any licensed teacher. I understand that these decisions are made with the health of students in mind, and I do not want anyone to think that I am asking this for my own gain. Please let student teachers into classrooms.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. And we continue to ask that people click their visibility screen and remain visible on the screen throughout your 2 minutes. Thank you. Next speaker.
Grace Carpenter, parent from Fairview.
Hello, can you guys hear me and see me?
No, we cannot see you. Please click the visibility button.
Okay. All right. Hold on one second. Okay, well, while I'm clicking the video, here's a couple of things that I want to speak on. First of all, we are reaching purple, and I do feel like, maybe we should keep in mind about the schools being open just because.
Would you please click your visibility button, ma'am?
I clicked it on, so I'm not sure why you guys aren't able to see me. Hold on.
Okay, hold on. We will make sure you get your 2 minutes. Can we please find out why it's not showing? Okay, go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. All right. So first of all, we're in purple. Well, seems like we may be reaching purple. So I'm not sure if you guys are taking that into consideration, because I don't want the schools to be part of the problem as for us having to isolate or, go into whatever is going to shut down because of purple. Also, it seems like this is the only way I'm going to be able to get some resolve here. So I've been having some racial issues over at Fairview that's been hindering my son's education for 2 years. There are a couple board members there who are aware of it, as well as your general counsel. So it's seeming like Mike Moravsky is working on racial issues of some sort. So how can I get you guys' attention without having to be public? Because I've tried doing this in private, but that's just not working. I'm getting ignored and it's not good, because I'm going to keep coming until we can get some resolve.
Okay, thank you. If you leave your contact information, we'll have someone contact you directly to see if we can help resolve this for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Our next speaker is Ozzie Davis. Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Greetings, school board members.
Hello.
Madam Chair, I miss you guys very much. I've got a comment and a suggestion and a question. My comment is, I appreciate the work you all are doing. If nobody else shares with you that we are grateful and loving of you, each of you, then please accept my gratitude and love for the entire community. We appreciate the work you're doing. I know personally how heavy a load each of you are carrying. Thank you very, very much. My suggestion as we head, and it seems like we're going to be purple tomorrow, is that the board members give the superintendent the authority to send the schools to virtual. The ball seems to be changing and the goal line seems to be moving from a public perspective if the school board does anything but leverage that authority to the school board the school superintendent. Finally, my question is about staff testing. Are the teachers being tested on a periodic basis? I keep listening to presentations, but I haven't heard if the teachers are being tested on a periodic basis. I'm concerned with teacher and staff safety. Again, I want to say thank you. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. I know you guys know it, but I want to say it publicly because I'm listening to every meeting, but I don't get to come on here publicly all the time. And I really, really, really respect and have a lot of gratitude for your service. God bless you all, and I'll be continuing to listen to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And someone will reach out to you in response to your question.
Our next speaker is Alison Goodman. Go ahead, Ms. Goodman.
Hi, I'm Alison Goodman. I am the parent of 2 CPS students. I have a 7th grader at SCPA and a 3rd grader at Pleasant Ridge Montessori. They have absolutely loved being in school these last few weeks. And I want to say thank you to all of the teachers and administrators and you as the board who have made that possible. They've made relationships with teachers that they didn't previously have, and they've started to connect with students, and it has made a world of difference for them. So thank you for that. I am also involved at Pleasant Ridge Montessori in the boosters, and we are hopeful that as time goes on, that athletics will be able to continue at the elementary level. And so we are asking for your help in making sure that we will be able to do that. We had a wonderful soccer clinic, fully distanced and masked the entire time. That was a huge success for our community this past weekend. And as more sports will be starting up in the time to come, we're wondering if the school will partner with us as boosters to make those athletics possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So we've invited a few other folks to accept the invitation to speak live, but I don't think anyone else has accepted at this time. Sorry, Mandy Jean is a parent, and she has requested to speak. So go ahead, Miss Jean.
All right. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, see me? Yeah, everyone can hear and see me? Good?
We're good. Go ahead.
Thank you, just making sure. All right, cool. So I, again, am appreciative of the time you're giving me here. And I have two children, one at Clark, one at PRM, and both those schools have positive cases now. There is at least two I know of at Clark and two at PRM, and we have decided to keep our family remote because, as you should know, we have immunocompromised people in our family, and it's not safe for us. I do not understand what Jeremy, the IT guy, continues to go on about, how it is not a possibility to do the remote for the schools. If that were such the case, then why was it no problem to, within the first 5 weeks, deliver and then do optics for all the kids in the district? That, I think, is a huge plot hole you can drive a truck right through. Because that brings me to my next question. As CDA has been overwhelmed, are they ready to bring in all these extra students? Because that, I think, is also a plot hole you can drive a truck right through. Next, I know for me, it has not been a problem to keep my third grader in his enrichment programs. However, I know for a lot of my friends that they're being told that they cannot meet virtually with their enrichment instructors. So why is that not the case with all the schools? I guess that's a question for Jeremy. I just do not understand. You guys are always talking at both sides of your mouth, and I think a lot of us have just had it. We're going to go purple tomorrow, which I think is the general consensus. So if we're going purple, what does Sarah...
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
And Whitaker, go ahead, Ms. Whitaker.
Hi. I really wish that I could stop speaking at these meetings because unlike everybody else.
Excuse me, can you hold on 1 second? We still
Sure.
have the previous speaker on. Okay, I don't know if she left. Okay. So can we bring the next person on again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Whitaker.
Thank you. I really wish that I could stop speaking at these meetings. I'm sure you would probably wish that I would stop speaking at these meetings too. But I just have to say that this whole attempt to pretend like remote learning was ever a real option is incredibly frustrating. I don't know what kind of like circle back that was to just call the parents whose students didn't show up to blended learning. I have multiple friends and family who sent their kid because they felt like they didn't have another choice, because they thought that they would get kicked out if they decided to keep their kids at home or not be able to talk to the teachers or anything that we went through last week. If you want a true picture, you need to send out another survey. Bottom line, it's almost like to the point where it's a dereliction of duty that you guys are like, good luck, guys. There's 3,000 of you, but there's really, I'm sure, a much greater number, and we deserve to have an equitable education as well. We're about to go back to purple. We cannot keep our kids in school. And those people who want to, go ahead, let them stay if that's what you want. But you have to offer a true remote option. You cannot tell us to go to CDA. You cannot tell us to find a different choice or whatever it was that Jeremy said. That is not an option. That is not what we pay for. We are doing everything we can to support our teachers and our staff. They're dropping like flies. I don't know how in your mind you think that this is okay to continue on. Additionally, it just seems like you guys have made a decision and you're sticking with it no matter what the cost to the parents and teachers. I'm really just begging you to reverse course. Like, you have to do the right thing. I won't be sending my kids to school no matter what. I also won't be sending them to CDA. I will call them in daily if I have to, due to unsafe conditions and a public health emergency. And the parents who want to stay remote will escalate that however we see fit. So please, try to review your options again and give the remote learners a fair shot, because what you've done so far is not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Heath, followed by Crystal Housler. Go ahead, Ms. Heath.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Heath.
Hi. So,
Please turn your visibility. We can't see you. And please identify your affiliation and your school community, please. Okay.
okay. I'm with Sands Montessori, and you guys need back remote. And as one of our other speakers spoke from, because she is our parent group leader.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but we need to know, we need to see you, and we would like for you to identify your affiliation with the district and your school community.
You guys don't care, so neither should I. I'm
Okay, go. Did she leave? Okay.
Our next speaker is Crystal Housler. Ms. Housler, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Crystal Housler, and my children go to Cheviot Elementary. My oldest child, I have two children, one in fourth and one in sixth. My oldest child did 2 years of preschool, and he has been at Cheviot his entire life. Both of them have. This is his 9th year at Cheviot, and we've had a really difficult time with trying to make a decision. We filled out the survey, but still I feel like there is no plan in place for my children. We have an 86-year-old grandmother who stays with us, and we take care of her. And because of her health conditions, it is very hard for me to make the choice between my children's education or their life, or the life of someone that they love. The school is very aware. I've been very involved with the school for a long time, and I just feel like there's no plan in place. I've been watching these board meetings, hoping that you guys will make a plan either for remote learning or something. And I feel like there has been nothing. It's kind of just, we've been going around the same circle as far as what are we going to do. And even after today, I still don't feel like there's a plan in place. I don't want to change my children to Cincinnati Digital Academy. They've been at the same school their whole life. It would take them from everything that they know and everyone that they know. And I just don't feel like that's a valid option. So I really hope that you guys can come up with a plan that makes sense for everyone. And I know you're doing your best. So I hope you take into account, you know, it may not be our children. It may be someone that they love who they're putting in danger by going to school. And again, my children have not been to school, but we haven't heard from anyone either. I just want to say, I hope you guys come up with a plan that makes sense, because my child's education means a lot to me. So I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Felicia Lee, followed by Ashley Tolokonsky.
Hi, my name is Felicia Lee. Can you guys hear me?
Can you hold on 1 second, please? We will allow you the full 2 minutes. The
Yes,
previous person is still on.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Is the late? No? Okay. Well, her visibility is still, we can't see the next person. Okay. So I should wait like 20 seconds? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Felicia Lee. I work at Rockdale Academy as a paraprofessional. I wanted to know if it went in purple on tomorrow, how would that affect the paraprofessionals? Because I know we have the day that we already have off. But I mean, we can't get our hours back, but I'm asking just as a concern, just to see how it's going to go out, how it's going to work out. That's my question.
Okay. And if you left your contact information, someone will let you know. We'll get back to you. We typically don't address the questions here on this forum, but someone will get back to you. You're welcome.
Here is Ashley Tolokonsky. Go ahead, Ms. Tolokonsky.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera on. Hold on a second. Okay, hi. I'm a parent of two children at High Park School. I've got a 4th grader and a 6th grader. And I just wanted to mention how happy they were to go back to school last week. They started Thursday. My daughter, I picked her up and she said she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it was true. She said the second she got to school, she just kept thinking, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I hope this day never ends. So then she said when it did end, it was so great. She said even the masks were great. She said we got to eat lunch outside. So I'm very thankful that they even got those two days of joy. Unfortunately, it looks like remote is going to happen at some point again. I just hope that when it does, you're double, triple, quadruple sure that it is really time to go remote. I think we obviously kind of jumped the gun. Maybe we could have gone back to school earlier, back when things were better. But anyway, I'm so glad that they got to go back to school. They are thrilled. They are happy. They're excited about tomorrow. And I hope that we get to stay in school much longer and then get some streaming at some point. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Here is CFT President Julie Sellers. Go ahead, Ms. Sellers.
Let me turn my camera on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What I want to know is that I'm going to be very short this evening, but I do want to remind everyone that the district assured everyone that there would be plenty of substitute teachers to cover all classes when they are out ill or quarantined. And as you saw from the report this evening by Paul McDowell, that has not been the case. I know it seems like only 96 teachers who have been quarantined or who have tested positive is not that many, but many more have been quarantined. We've had many teachers out in clusters, and I know that teachers are feeling more fearful. I did not hear this evening if there was a decision about if we were reopening or not reopening, and it's very confusing because teachers and parents and students can't be told the day before it happens. It's very ironic that we don't have enough subs, but yet the treasurer recommended in the treasurer's report during the last meeting to cut the super subs by 50%. And these past 2 weeks is when we have needed them the most. The number of positive cases and or quarantines is building and increasing daily. I am glad that they were able to say that there's 27 cases. That is accurate. That's what I heard this afternoon per 100,000. And that's above the limit of what is considered safe based on the guidelines of the Public Health Advisory Group that works with the district. So really there is no data to say that we are in the clear to have schools open, and I think that it's something that the decision needs to be made sooner than later. Teachers are very worried. They're very upset. And I think that we need to have a clear guidance of what is going to happen because it's creating too much anxiety for everyone from the smallest child up through the 12th graders. And like the parent right before this, my granddaughter last week when she entered school for the first time, and I said to her, I said, how was school? And she said, it was wonderful. My teacher on camera is nice as my teacher in person. And so they understand that it's the same person, either if they're doing it virtually or in person. And I think that we are at the point now where until our city and our state decides to do something systematically to reduce the spread, it's just too dangerous. The number of hospitalizations are escalating, and my concern is that we are contributing to the community spread across this city and county and state, and it's too dangerous for us to be having that type of negative impact. But I am keeping it short, and we do need to make sure that we are in a safe environment for the teachers. You can't run schools without teachers. So thank you.
Thank you. I believe, is that the end of the hearing public?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All righty. So for those of you in our audience who may not have heard in the beginning, we intentionally started the hearing of the public before the board opened up for questions, comments, and discussion of the superintendent's presentation. So at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for any discussion, question, comments from board members. Now, before we do that, I think that what is the intent of this conversation and what kind of decisions need to be made. And I think the intent, of course, is to have conversation about the information that we received from the superintendent and the leadership team tonight. And then I believe our goal is to give clear direction to administration as to what tonight's next step will be in terms of a decision one way or the other. And we can talk about any other things that we need to talk about tonight, but just so we're clear that at the end of the discussion, we want to have some direction of how we move forward. Mr. Morosky first.
That's great. Thank you, President Jones. And thanks to everyone that spoke, and thanks to the superintendent and her team for the presentation. So I have a question and just a couple comments. So my question would be for Ms. Trimble Oliver, and it's just a point of clarity. On slide number 9, excuse me, on slide number 9, there were 4 data points that are kind of grayish, and my question is twofold. Question number 1 is, are they grayish because they haven't been confirmed? And question number 2 is, since they're outside the standard deviation, am I correct in thinking that you need 8 data points for that line to move, in which case, if I was reading it correctly, it would be moving upward, which is bad. I just want to know if it's 8 points, if I'm correct in that, and if the gray means they're not solidified.
Okay, and so slide number 9 is the positivity rate.
Right.
Is that correct? Yes.
That's correct.
So I'm just making sure I'm on the right slide. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So they do have a footnote that the data points that are gray or actually unfilled are preliminary data, and those are usually the most recent days, and so they are subject to change on future reports.
Right. And am I correct? I look at reports like this a lot, that you need 8 to move the common variation, and we have 4 and 2 that are close to being outside the gray box. Is it 8? Is that correct?
I don't know if that is correct, but I can find out, Mr. Morosky.
That'd be great. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the inclusion of all these graphs too, Ms. Trimble Oliver. They're really helpful. So that's really my only question. And then my comments, I suppose, are twofold. And one is to piggyback off Ms. Bolton, if I may, that if we can figure out in-school remote, I think we have to. And I understand what the challenge is, and that it's personnel based, and that we need to have, the teachers that can teach it. But if this board is about offering that choice, which I hear a lot, and that's good, I think we need to be able to find a way to do that. And I just continue to push that. And then also to put a pin in another thing Ms. Bolton said, which was the survey's confusing nature, because I didn't know everybody made those calls to the superintendent. I think that's awesome. I had no idea until tonight, so that's great. But just to echo Ms. Bolton, I hear that refrain quite a bit. So whether it's accurate or not at this point, it certainly seems to be a widespread perception. And then lastly, the only other comment I'll make, since the president said we're going to get to this point, which is great, is and I can reiterate it later, is that in many ways it's unfortunate we meet Wednesdays and the maps get updated Thursdays. But probably unsurprisingly, my vote would be, if we go purple, that we do not have in-person students on Friday. And then, of course, we can discuss next week what that might look like.
Okay. Other questions and comments? Mr. Messer.
Yeah, I think, I'm really not sure if we're teed up to make a decision. At this point, up until this point, we've had kind of, here's where we are and here's where the administration thinks we should be. And then we approve the report and we move forward. But I didn't see anything in there that was saying we need to adjust per se. So are we actually having a vote this time on a change?
Anybody can answer, but my understanding is that we're not having a vote per se.
Okay.
But given that we will know tomorrow the specific data, which her report is saying we're right on the brink and that it's likely that we will go purple. So we need to be able, as one of our speakers said, Mr. Davis, who said, we need to be able to give direction and give the superintendent the okay to move forward with whatever decision is made about when closing or not closing, if we move purple or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think we gave the superintendent, kind of early on, because I think people in the public were confused why we weren't voting each time. And it's because kind of at that very beginning, we said, hey, and then we will allow the superintendent to adjust as necessary. And so it would just appear in our, it would just be in the presentations as part of like, here's what we're planning to do. And I think that's the piece that I'm missing is, if you move to that, there's a whole lot behind it. So what does it mean? So are we actually deciding that tonight? Or are we going to be doing that then at our next regularly scheduled meeting? Because I am getting texts as like, what are we actually talking about?
Let me let Ms. Bolton speak, and then I'll speak. Go ahead. I see you. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Bolton.
I have a couple of questions.
Please talk into the mic.
Yeah, right into it.
Bring the mic up to you a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm interested in it said that the public school districts in Hamilton County, they listed it as to the positives, the folks that had COVID and those sorts of numbers. I have a question. That would be the public school districts, but it would not include the parochial or the private or the other religious schools. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then a question about that then, but it would include charters.
These particular numbers do not. We filtered for only public school districts.
Okay, so that is not really about all the school districts in Hamilton County. It's the public school districts minus even the charters.
Yes.
So really only the 22 or whatever school districts that are required by ODE to report, apparently.
They all are required to report, but for this particular report, we filtered out the non-publics and the charter school counts.
Okay, probably next time we want to see that. And then for staff members, we have 6,000 staff members in the district. Is that? I don't know that was said. I missed it when it was.
Yes, it was said.
Okay, great, great. And if I could ask Jeremy a question, just for my own edification about the bridge. One of the reasons that we can't do the streaming, and I totally buy it. I mean, that's a long range kind of thing financially and technologically and whatever. But the reason we can't do it now, though, is it my understanding that now too few people are interested in it?
That's correct.
Okay. So for a few months, or at least 2 months, we can't do it because it would be too large.
Correct. So the way we've termed it, and maybe a better way to look at it is, we've been looking at it as the number who want to have a dedicated in-school remote option, and that number being too small. So the flip of that is the remaining number of students at the school who would be doing in-person is too large to allow the number we need. It has to be a specific balance between the two to meet the capacity. So it's, one grows, one shrinks, and there's kind of a fine line there that if you go too far in either direction, then it overwhelms the need of the smaller or larger group.
And I don't want to belabor this further, but obviously the long term would be, many of our folks want to stay within their school community. We hear that all the time. And ideally, some of them want to do in person, and some of them want school site remote. And there's some resistance for some about CDA because they're not within their school community. So my question is there an in-between, or is there a third option down the road, or even, soon, where it's not this, there's streaming, but there's also remote and in person? I mean, the remote we've done, relatively successful initially, all things considered, was not streaming.
Correct.
It was other stuff. Is that, technologically, is that correct?
That's correct.
What if it was a combination of those three things, as well as our good CDA, if there were three things happening at the site level?
So my best answer to that would essentially be that, we have not looked at only one specific option. We have considered a whole different lots of options that we continue. We've used the term streaming in this context to kind of cover a global list of options. In reality, there's a bunch of different, whether that's through a video conferencing platform, and actually live streaming, all those different options, right? We've looked at each of those to balance, and then we've kind of just categorized it as a whole, but we've looked at a lot of those options. And obviously, we'll continue to look both short and long term at every possible option to offer as many options as we can. It's just, this is where we stand right now.
And I'm just saying, from a, if we living by the science and what needs to happen, safety and what have you, it would be great if there was something that could over a period of time, even within this year, actually offer a more permanent solution that may have more options. Maybe there would be streaming, there would be then the distance that we were doing, and there would also be, and then that's really a staffing issue. Maybe as much as it's a technological issue.
There's definitely a combination of complexities.
Okay, I'm just thinking that would be something maybe to think about. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Can I guess I was thinking, to me, there's a very basic thing that I think we can resolve right now. And one is, based on the data we know, given that there's going to be a more complete data picture tomorrow that is telling us clearly that we will either go purple or we will not go purple. The decision right now is, are we going to give the superintendent the go-ahead to close the schools if it's purple? I'm asking that question. Now, that's what I'm posing. Melanie was first, and then Ben.
Well, in my opinion, that's what we're discussing now, because we also have data that shows that the schools aren't the spreaders. I have not received, and maybe I've missed them, one email in the last 2 weeks from anyone saying our schools are unsafe and that our protocols are not a very high quality. The cases we have in our schools are coming from the community. We know that because we do our own contact tracing, correct? So the schools aren't the spreaders. The schools are the safe and clean places from our data. That's what I'm understanding. We're having lots of activity outside of the schools, but not in the schools. So that's a piece of the data that we have to consider, and giving the go-ahead to the superintendent to go purple, or keeping or deciding that the schools actually are the safest place to be when we are purple. That's the decision. The other issue we have to consider is, it comes down to equity. If we close our schools and go remote, and our survey showed that there's little interest in the community in going remote, except for one school who was over 25%, but the other schools showed little interest in going remote. There are children who will not have been in school outside of these 2 weeks for almost 9.5 months. And we have a hard time catching up children who go to underperforming charter schools when they've been in charter schools for that length of time. we're going to have a heck of a time bringing our kids who aren't getting the support at home from adults who are technologically able or really understand the curriculum. They may not be their parents. It may be a caregiver. It may be a grandmother. And we're going to go back to a system of the haves and the have-nots, like we used to have, which we have gotten rid of. You know, those who are, you know, technologically able and have families that can support the nitty-gritty of education, and those who cannot. So I'm very reluctant to give the superintendent the go-ahead to just close the schools if we go purple.
Okay, Mr. Lindy.
Thanks, President Jones. I want to, first of all, thank you, President Jones, for the way you framed the question. I think it was very clear. Like, are we empowering the superintendent to make a decision when the county changes tomorrow? I think just in quick response to Board Member Bates, I do think we still have a lot of haves and have-nots. And I think that's also what I hear you saying. It's just that there have been some improvements, but also a ton of inequity that still exists. I think I wanted to offer, I will come back, I promise, to this question of are we empowering the superintendent? But I wanted to say a quick thank you to Sarah. I thought it was so great to see that we're participating in that superintendent's dashboard of cases so that we can contribute to, I think, better information nationally on what's happening in schools. And I know whether it come up in the Health and Safety Committee, I was going to follow up on it tonight, and I want to say thank you. I think that's great. I think for my part on this question that the president posed, I think we should empower our superintendent to make the call that she thinks is the right one. And I stand by that. My one request would be that I do think that the rate at which we're learning new things about COVID is very high. And so my request would be that we don't lock ourselves into an extended or protracted time period in virtual if we do go virtual. Just this week, I saw, for example, that the Sycamore district announced that they're going to stay open even if the county goes purple, because they were able to say that 0 of the cases from students or staff had come from other students or staff. So I'm not saying that means we should stay open. What I'm saying is the rate at which information is evolving about this disease is very rapid. And so I'd like, my request would be that if we do close or we do go virtual, if the county goes purple, we put ourselves in a position where if we learn more that it is safe to have kids in person again, that we can do that.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lindy, for that information, because I read that about Sycamore as well as Mason as well as Forest Hills are saying in whatever situation they're in, it's either blended or 5-day. I'm not sure if every school, or Oak Hills and North College Hill as well. Whatever they're in now, that's where they're staying in. My concern would be that, and I'm going to differ with Board Member Lindy on this, is the inconsistency. If we do go to purple, there are 6 days that we are out of school in November. That is concerning to stop based on the numbers for our families. So whatever we decide as a board, my suggestion is that we sustain that, and then you have 3 weeks of school in December. So that's maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks of school that we're going back and forth with until the winter break. That's concerning for me for our families. My suggestion would not be to open, close. If we do decide to close or go to remote and if we are in purple, it would be to sustain that until next semester, just because of the consistency for our families.
Okay. I'd like to insert my comments. My opinion, our number one priority is the safety of our students and our staff. Folks, we are in a pandemic. This is not normal. And I don't care how much we justify our rationale around whether we open or close, it is not normal. The inequities, any real or perceived inequities that we had prior to the crisis are magnified. They're not going to get resolved as a result of us saying keep kids in school. That needs time and that needs work. I am reminded that we committed to the public in all of the conversations that we had in the past. We said to the public, if we go purple, we're going to close. We said that. And I think if we don't close, we again lose more footing, more credibility with our community. The trends that, based on this data that we received tonight, the trends in our school show we're trending, that the numbers are trending up. And yes, it's not, I do believe Ms. Bates's point that it's occurring in the communities, but these people live in the communities. They get it in the community and then they come into the schools. And that's the same way with students. And if the numbers, as Mr. McDowell talked about, if these numbers keep trending, we're going to have a problem on our hands. And I also want to make a point that I think it's going to be hard to contain the spread after a while. I also agree with Ms. Bauer's point that we have to have some stability and some consistency in this. We have to figure some things out. I appreciate Ms. Bolton's point about the virtual. We aren't going to be able to fix that if we open and then if we close and then open up in 1 week. And we're still going to have all these folks reaching out to us and talking about and expressing what they want, what their kid needs and all that. And we understand that. But we aren't going to be able to fix it. I'm just saying a period of time where we just kind of sit still is needed, in my opinion, for us to really look at these things in great depth. And then finally, I'll say our biggest inequity in all of this is the disparate rate of virus in the communities of color. I'm not going to talk about privilege. That's a fact. That is a fact. And so that's where I am with it. I think the decision for me is we give the superintendent the authority to close schools if we get in purple. Then we come back to the table next week. We have a meeting in 1 week. And all of this conversation that we're talking about, options and whatever else we need to do, we can lay it all out there. And then we can be more strategic in our focus. Doesn't necessarily mean we all agree to close schools to the end of the year. Well, we need to talk about that too. But at this point, I think I would encourage us to think, let's just make that decision and move on with it. Ms. Bolton.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to make sure that we stop using the word close. We are not closing the schools.
You're right.
We are not closing because teachers and children and families and grandparents and caretakers and God knows who else have been in school when we were at remote. So that's the important thing there. So we're not closing. It would be due to the chart and the data, which we were committed to, is telling us and giving us the indication or guiding us that it is not safe to be in person. I don't buy that because I think the safest place for our kids is school, but that may not be the case for staff, to get my drift on that. I would say that I'm more than willing, as one board member, to empower our superintendent to decide to suspend the in-person if indeed we are purple tomorrow, and to wait and get through at least the Thursday, Friday cycle so that they have that even. And we then go back to, as I think she would be saying, the 1-2-2, which was working. as a general remote effort with some of the variation. And then my point would be, I'm with Mr. Lindy on not, because I think this would be inconsistent. I'm not in favor of saying we're going to do it for a prolonged period of time, because we're doing what we may do if she recommends that or suggests that. We're going to suspend in person because of that data. I don't want to now stay out of school, even if, God willing, the data changes positively. To me, that's inconsistent. So I understand the stability, but I'm willing to listen, obviously, to what she's saying. So I feel okay about properly empowering the superintendent to do what she needs to do or what she believes to be needed to be done. But to what purpose and for how long, I think that's the issue that the board can then discuss when it decides to either reconvene regularly or reconvene before that. And so that's sort of where I am, because I think she wants to keep a united board as well as make the best educational recommendations she can.
And I know Ms. Bates wants to speak, but I hear you when you say we're not closed, and I agree with that, and I think that needs to be stated. But along those lines, and then I'll be quiet, we have to give the superintendent, I think, more authority to make the decisions around what happens every single day.
Yeah.
She knows they have the data. We don't. And so we have to be willing, I think, to sit back sometimes and listen and have discussion about it and make comments and give direction and options or whatever. But ultimately, it really is her decision with our approval. So I think I'm agreeing with everything that people are saying. And I know, and I'm hearing different points of different opinions about some of the things along the way, but we can come back and we can talk about that, have discussion about it at the next meeting and the meeting after that or whenever it's appropriate. But I think she'll know, because she'll have the data and can key us and let us know, as the data changes, she may say, I believe we can come back into the school building. I'm sorry, Ms. Bates.
No, that's okay.
Took over your time. Sorry.
No. I'll don't worry about me. I'll use all the time I think I need. Anyway, we're not giving the superintendent any authority. We're telling her to follow the directive of the board, which was to follow that, yellow, orange, red, purple guidelines. So we're giving the superintendent no authority. We're telling her to follow our guidelines. What I hear Ms. Jones saying is that, and Ms. Bolton, is that we should give the superintendent more authority. And if we're going to do that, we have to vote to give her more authority, because right now she has to follow our authority or our vote to close in purple. Now, is that what we want her to do, or do we want to give her flexibility?
Go ahead, Ms. Bolton.
Yeah, I hadn't really looked at it that way, but I can see that indeed living, as we have said to the community and the superintendent, living by the chart. She is already, to a certain degree, authorized to do that. That's why she's been, and her leadership group has done that. And that's why I'm saying if it's purple, then she has the discretion. And I know we said that a couple of weeks ago, has the discretion to exercise that authority. The authority for how long or to what purpose or other options facing this quarter or the coming semester, that probably would require, like you had suggested, President Jones, reconvening on a regularly scheduled to talk more about those kinds of options. But right now, I think she has the authority to suspend in person if we're at purple. And then after that, we can, reauthorize her. And I think we only got the information tonight. So I think it would be, to your point, to have that come a little bit later.
Okay. Mr. Messer?
Yes.
And I see you.
Thank you. So just going back to some of my earlier comments, and then as it relates to this, what would be helpful to me let me preface this by saying I trust our superintendent implicitly. And frankly, I depend on her guidance to help me shape what the right decision is, because they spend all day, every day, working through this data, thinking through not just this part of education, but the complexity of education and the population in which we serve. And so what would be helpful is very clearly stating, here is the recommendation, and here's the impact that will get us to then the next decision point. Because what I hear is giving her the decision to do what we want. And I don't know if that's necessarily what we all intend, but I did hear with Ms. Bates that I did hear that a little bit. So what would be helpful is to say, as the person who knows way more about education than I'll ever know, to say, here's what I believe is best for our students. Here's what I think it'll look like until your next decision point. And then at that time, we can make the next decision. I just need to have a little bit more detail of what specifically the superintendent is recommending that we do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morosky.
Thank you, President Jones. I hear what Ms. Bates is saying, and I think that's true. I think we did imbue the superintendent with the authority to make the decisions based on the recommendations or that we had approved. The thing that I worry about, that we have already gone back on what we said we would do and sent kids back when it was red. And I think it is incumbent upon us to take a stand and put our votes behind it, that we are not sending students to school when it's purple, because we have changed already. We voted once and it didn't matter, because then we just changed and sent kids back. When I asked a couple meetings ago what the difference between good red and bad red was, maybe the answer was good for others, but it didn't really sit great with me. And I also think, if we look at the data, I think we know enough today of what's going to happen. This thing is spiraling out of control. And it's not just Ohio, it's neighboring states. Kentucky's doing better because they have a lot more rural areas. Indiana's a mess. Oak Hill's just closed. The other urbans in the state have closed. Columbus and Cleveland are closed. Cleveland doesn't even have sports. We're still having our sports. I'm willing to not talk about that tonight. But I think we need to be pretty decisive about this. This is a public health emergency, and we need to quit saying, well, we gave this person the authority. We said this person could do this, and we need to say we are doing it or we're not. And to repeat again, and Ms. Bowers spoke to this and Ms. Jones did as well, the options are, in my opinion, pedagogically unsound in that the options are consistent disruption and inconsistent disruption. And the virtual, as I've long maintained, is consistent disruption, which I feel is better. The 2 days of self-directed learning aren't great. I will next week advocate, unsurprisingly, for staying closed until January. But we need to make some kind of decision and stop just saying, oh, well, this or that, or we'll make an exception here and there. My opinion.
Okay, so where we are now, Ms. Bolton, one final comment.
We made the decision to follow the data and make the decisions based upon the data. That means if it's purple, we are going to suspend in person, but not necessarily, probably, but not necessarily give up 2 months of possible in-person instruction.
We haven't made that decision, and we've not had any discussion about that. So
that's that decision point you talked about at the next meeting. Point.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought we were.
We're in agreement about that. So I think what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing consensus from the group that the superintendent has the flexibility, if that's the word. I don't know if authority or flexibility is the right word, but given what we know from the data, that it is her call to make that decision to close the schools, if in fact that's what the data calls for. The school buildings, not school, but the close the school buildings. Right? Did I repeat that correctly? Suspending in person. Yes. Thank you. Mr. Morosky, short.
I would just ask it be more direct and more specific, i.e., if we are purple tomorrow, if the map is updated to purple, that the superintendent close the schools, buildings, suspend in-person learning based on the criteria already set forth, beginning with the B group on Friday.
Beginning what?
With the B group on Friday, because the map is going to get updated at 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's
I think that's her call. Yes.
Well,
Go ahead, Ms. Bates.
I mean, I agree that's what the board's direction was in September, but with the current data, I now disagree, but, you know, that was the directive of the board, so that's what, you know, unless the board wants to overturn that directive, I still believe that schools are very safe. We're sending the kids out into a purple community without having them in our schools. And I think that the stability isn't that we follow, you know, the county or the city's alerts. The stability is having the kids consistency, and that is to not have them remote in school 2 weeks, remote. To me, that is where the instability is, not in our decision making.
Yes, and I think that's the point, again, the decision point that we need to talk more about, that we can focus our energies and our conversation on next week. Mr. Messer, I promise you're going to be the last comment. We need to move on.
Yeah, so I hear that we want to give the superintendent the authority to make the best decisions, and then we follow that with, and do this, this, and this. You know, I think we absolutely have to give her the authority and weigh everything, including what the heck parents are going to do when they find out tomorrow when they don't have childcare, what they're going to do. So now we've got more problems. And so I think we all say, hey,
let her do her
let
job.
her do it. And then they will update us because it is, if you have a child in the district, and I know there's lots of parents listening, you're going to have to pivot. And I'm going to tell you, there is no childcare available.
Oh, there isn't. I can speak for that. So we have a lot of different versions, Superintendent, of the directive, but I think the board is in agreement that you make that call. The call is made, right? The call is made. But I'm saying she's the one that has to enact it. So it really is, you know, depending on what the data says tomorrow, which is what I heard in the presentation. Okay. So, Superintendent, if you need to make that decision tomorrow to close, the board is in agreement, and we'll move on from there. Any other questions or comments about that particular matter?
I do want to say this isn't the superintendent's decision. This is the board's decision by vote in September. So the superintendent will be enacting a September decision. We did not empower her to make a decision.
We've made so many decisions and switched, changed the process and switched. Come from many, many different directions, which is why we're in the position that we're in now. So, you know, I have to disagree with Ms. Bates on that. I think, you know, as long as we're clear tonight what we're doing, we have to work the rest of that out. Seriously. Okay. All right. Okay, so if we can move on then, do we have any other announcements? Well, do we have any kudos? Yes, Ms. Bowers.
Yes, I want to give a kudos to Assistant Superintendent
We
Murphy.
can't hear you, dear.
Can you hear me now? Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Kudos to Assistant Superintendent Murphy. I think it was her team that was in charge of, I believe, a Facebook Live with the University of Dayton the other day. I thought that was that your team, Ms. Murphy? Yes, very, very good. I thought the information and our collaboration in general with the colleges are very good in reference to us transitioning our students after graduation. But one of the key things that I think I got out of that, and I don't know if there's data on who actually attended or participated in that stream. But one of the key points, they have a program, and I don't remember the name of the program, that they're saying that our kids really could benefit from. And the key thing that they were omitting or not really exclusively using SAT or ACT scores amid the COVID-19, but they reiterated that students would still be able to qualify for merit scholarships, regardless of the ACT or SAT score. So I thought that was key, and I just want to give kudos to your team for that stream.
Okay, thank you. Any other kudos?
I got one.
Yes, Mr. Messer.
Just a quick shout out to the administration who someone made aware that they went above and beyond to make sure that some of our juniors could take their PSAT in the most effective way. And I know people put in a lot of extra work to make that possible, and just wanted to say thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Bolton and then Mr. Lindy.
Yeah, a great amount of kudos to all the people that have worked really hard in trying to support our renewal this coming week, and appreciate their work. And it's been a volunteer effort, and also want to make sure we support our private providers as well in this partnership. So God willing, we will be able to thank them again.
Thank you. Mr. Lindy?
Yeah, I probably gave my shout out to Sarah Trimble Oliver too early and should have put it here, so I'll just reference that again. Thank you. I got the name of the dashboard wrong. It's called the COVID-19 School Response Dashboard. And I wanted to thank you for including CPS data in that project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Bates has informed us that we don't have any retirements today?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you have before you a first reading of a resolution to recognize and thank Father Michael Graham for his service as president of the board of Cincinnati Preschool Promise. It is a first reading, and I presented it this way because timing. They're doing a ceremony for him on November 17th, and we didn't have time to take it to committee. So if you have comments or questions or edits or whatever, I would suggest that perhaps you deliver those to Mr. Hoying, who will draft it, and we'll have it on next week's agenda for approval. And if it's okay with the board, and unless you change the decision, I'd like to be the person to attend their November 17th Zoom meeting to present it, if that's okay. All right. Thank you. All righty, where are we? Okay, do I need a motion on that, or is that just a first reading? Okay, I don't need a motion. Okay, Superintendent Mitchell, do you have a report?
I do have a very brief report, and they're hopefully pulling up my PowerPoint presentation now. Just want to highlight a couple of important things for you all. Not yet, please. Okay, so thank you. Next slide, please. So you know that our Mask on Me campaign has launched, and it is up and moving along, so you can see pictures of our wonderful kids who have their mask on, asking everyone to wear their mask to keep everyone safe. There is a very cute video that goes along with the Mask on Me campaign, so if you haven't seen it, please go to our website and check it out. Next slide, please. Earlier this week, we celebrated International Day of Girls, and so this goes along in the program, and that was on Monday that we did a massive celebration and hearing the voice of our young women who are in our district each and every day. Thank you. Next slide. And then the last update is just regarding School Bus Safety Week. Remembering to have everyone who drives to really pay attention to our kids who are walkers and kids who are getting off of buses to make sure that they are safe, or kids getting out of vehicles in general, even when their parents are dropping them off. So we just want to make sure that we highlight this, that this is School Bus Safety Week, and we hope that all of our young people are safe while they are out and about in our communities. Thank you, and that ends my verbal report.
Thank you, Superintendent. Do I have a motion to approve the recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner, please call roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Messer? Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve the revised report of the treasurer?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Bolton?
Just an explanation again of the term master service agreement. We've talked about it a couple of times a year, and if you just describe it and explain that there is reasonable accountability or greater accountability or what have you in a master service agreement.
So when we have a partner that has several contracts underneath that general partnership with the district, so they serve different schools for different purposes, they have one contract that's a master agreement, and then the schools can do subcontracts underneath that, so they don't have to renegotiate the contract every time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Bowers.
And I just want clarity. In our September student achievement meeting, I believe it was then that Assistant Superintendent Murphy, you reported that not all of the projected students had enrolled in CCP courses. I just want to clarify for with our treasurer that payment to the University of Cincinnati, is that the projected payment that we're going to pay to help students at that particular school, or are we still having students to sign up for CCP for those necessary purchases?
My understanding that this is an expansion, because remember we started the year with the 90-day appropriation, and this is an increase in contract or the purchase order to accommodate the increased interest.
Okay.
The payment
Yes.
is only done based off of.
So it'll
their
cover those who
reconciliation.
are projected to participate?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, good. So it's not like that's said and they won't be able to purchase those things when because that time they had not all enrolled or.
That's correct. When we met earlier, they were not all enrolled. We were still accepting students. And based on the information we have now, I think it was a $25,000 increase.
Okay.
So yes,
Great.
more students participating.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you. Treasurer Wagner, please call roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy? Mr. Messer?
Aye.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Somebody said you should talk so much. He said that. Okay. All right, thank you. Inquiries and updates? Yes, Mr. Lindy?
If you had some, President Jones, I didn't mean to go first.
I'm sorry?
I was worried I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, great. So yeah, I had three things here that I wanted to mention, I hope very quickly. The first is, I think that one of the most important things we can do is just to get clearer on what our most important priorities and outcomes are as a district, and then make sure that we're coming back to them in every meeting. I would like to make, and this may be more of an assignment for our next meeting, that the administration come back with a set of what they think are the most important priorities and outcomes.
Can you put that in our assignment section?
I certainly can.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's appropriate, but it's just, we're on inquiries and updates, so you're one step ahead of us.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, any inquiries or updates? Go ahead, Ms. Bolton.
Just an update. We had a member of the public, a student teacher candidate, report that the limits that we have placed, rightfully so, on our student teacher candidates from kind of having access. And I know that that is part of the health plan, the safety plan, and a reasonable one at that. But I will just say that the how shall I say it, the ESB, Education Standards Board, does ask that certain exceptions be made so that indeed the pipeline, which is very, very small at this point in time, can keep growing. So it might not be a bad idea, even in the name of safety and what have you, to at least review some of the candidates to see if some might be all right. But that's been the word from Columbus because of the pipeline problem of teachers. So if we have that young person's name.
Okay. That person's name was identified in the chat. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then one final update, just to remind board members, if you're interested in attending the OSBA conference, registration is still open. Please let board staff know if you plan to attend. Okay, Ms. Bolton?
Yes, something that I forgot to mention, that I need to mention is that I think Mr. Messer talked in our retreat or work sessions, in the need to kind of have some input and know what's going on in the schools, maybe even meeting with Lsdmcs. There is, as I've mentioned, a quarterly Lsdmc meetings, and the next one is November 18th at 6 o'clock, and board members have been invited. If we have more than 3 of us, General Counsel has said we'll have to notice, but those are very well attended. They are remote, but it's a great thing to participate in those. So it's November 18th at 6 o'clock, and Assistant Superintendent Murphy manages it, but everybody's welcome. And if we have through Phyllis, we know how many of you would be attending, then General Counsel will know to advise the staff to notice properly.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're ready for assignments. Mr. Lindy.
Thank you, President Jones. As I look at these, I realize what I have 3 things that I think are a mix of assignments and inquiries and updates.
Okay.
So if I have these in the wrong place, I apologize. I'm blaming it on being new guy. So I got 1 more month left to being the new guy, and I got a year and a month. Thing one, I do think one of the most important things we can do is get clear on most important priorities and outcomes, and then make sure we're coming back to them every meeting. So I'd like to make as an assignment for the administration to come back with what they think are the most important priorities and outcomes for the district. For my part, it seems like there are 4 of these, which is, are we running schools safely? Are we finding and supporting any missing kids? Are we spending disproportionate and effective energy on our biggest academic gaps? And are we on solid financial footing? I'd love to see in our next meeting what the administration thinks are most important priorities and also measurable outcomes should be. So that was assignment thing 1. Thing 2, I do think maybe more of an inquiry. Am I right in thinking we had a discussion some board meetings ago on a resolution about carryover spending with Cincinnati Preschool Promise? Am I right that we're going to do that after, like in a couple of weeks?
That's being worked on as we speak, yes.
That's great. I just wanted to share that I think the Preschool Promise and CPS partnership has been such an inspiring thing and such a good things for kids. And I'm really excited about the campaign. And I hope things go really well next week. I'm confident and very optimistic that we will get to a place where CPP and their board and our board feel great about whatever we ultimately decide, which I have to imagine will involve an equal division of carryover resources. And the third and last thing was that if I remember right, a couple meetings ago, Deputy Superintendent Amat shared that we'd look at MAP data from the beginning of the year, early in November. So I think that's coming up soon. What I wanted to request, I'm very concerned about where gaps in opportunity might be getting worse because of COVID. And so what I wanted to ask is that when we do look at that data together, can we see somehow a comparison between what gaps in opportunity based on income level looked like before the pandemic and how those may have gotten worse or better since the last school year? And I have a couple, I won't waste everybody's time with it now, but like I have a couple ideas for how we might do that. You may also have lots of better ideas. But if it's helpful to connect on that, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Okay, Thanks. Any other assignments, Mr. Morosky?
As promised, just to formalize my assignment to look at another sort of comparative exercise, the in-person or the blended rather attendance that we've currently been able to gather for the past few weeks versus the 100%.
Okay, Ms. Bolton?
Yes, the data that was shown to us and shared tonight regarding the school districts in Hamilton County, since we didn't have the ones from charters, which are public, or the parochial or the private, either if you can send that to me, to board members, I think it might be interesting for all of everyone, or at least the link as to do that. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other assignments? Okay, all right. Let's see, record time? Not quite, but we did good. Having no other business before us, I declare the meeting adjourned.